Hi, welcome to Long Lost Friends. I'm Elizabeth Eve King.
And I'm Andrea Goyan. And together
we're
long
lost friends. And today we are so thrilled to have once again the amazing, famous, wonderful, prolific, incredibly prolific, and multi-talented Mercedes Lackey joining us. Mercedes is, as everybody knows, a writer of fantasy and science fiction novels. She's published over 140 books and writes novels at about the rate of 5.5 per year on average.
I'm getting slower in my old age.
Should we make it 5.4? 5, just 5, 5 on average. She's also the 38th Damon Knight Grand Master. She works in raptor rehabilitation, enjoys beadwork, costuming, and needlework, has been active in the filking community. Filking is like sci-fi folk singing. And she's also active in online question and answer on Quora. Welcome back, Mercedes.
Welcome.
We're
Yay,
so happy.
Mercedes.
Hello.
Hello.
Since we're saying hello, will you say hello to us as a tiger?
Yeah,
say hello?
say hello in tiger. No. Oh, Andrea and I are definitely going to the zoo and trying to say hello in tiger.
Well, we'll take
let
some
you know.
video and send it to you.
Let you know if they come up and say hello to us back. I hope they do.
I hope so too.
It's like
So
llamas
you
and
majored in biology,
I did.
general biology, and
General biology, went to Purdue. And I was lucky enough to take several courses in ethology, which is the science of natural animal behavior from the amazing Dr. Eric Klinghammer, who is the founder of Wolf Park in Indiana, just
wow.
outside of West Lafayette.
wow.
Did you work with wolves at all?
I never worked with wolves. He was an expert.
So amazing.
Wow. Well, we had the great fortune to speak to you just a little while ago, and we started to talk about a subject that we all wanted to know more about, which was how you work with several people online, about the process of working with co-writers all at once. Just seemed daunting.
Well, I've been working with co-writers for a long time. When I worked with Marion Timmer Bradley and Andre Norton, it was a little different from and same for when I worked with Rosemary Edgehill. It's a little different from what I did with my core peeps, my Secret World crew. That was, we worked out the outline, and then I went away and I would write a chapter and I would physically mail it to them because this was pre-internet. I think there may have been basic email, but it wasn't good enough to make an attachment of a chapter. So I would physically mail them the chapter. They would make notes in the margin and physically mail it back to me. I'd incorporate the notes, and meanwhile I would have gone on to the next chapter. And that's a pretty standard way of collaborating with people. But when I worked with my Secret World peeps, we started out actually RPing these characters in the City of Heroes superhero game. And we got to know them when we developed such, we thought, pretty fun characters. We decided we'd give a trial and we wrote a lot of fiction about these characters as well. I guess it would be cut under the heading of fan fiction since it was set in the game universe. So we decided to take just the experience we had with those characters and how we wanted to keep them the same or how we wanted to keep them different. And we created our own world and we created our own universe for them to be in. And at that time, Google Docs had just come out, and we had been using a collaborative writing program called MoonEdit. And it was okay. It was certainly better than anything else that was out there, but it wasn't really conducive to turning out any kind of professional prose. So we got into Google Docs together, and we started out by everybody being in the document at the same time, and we worked out the outline, that the overall arc for the 5-book series. And then as we did each book, then we worked out the outline for each one.
So you're
And
not
on the first book, we mostly did not work in the same document at the same time. I would say in about the first third, we were doing solo stories.
Where, when you say solo stories, do you mean solo, you mean chapter by chapter, each
Chapter
person
by
took-
chapter, each one of us was taking on their own story. And of course, we were reading each other's stories. So we kept the continuity going. And we had it, the chapter open to the other writers, so they could say, oh, my character wouldn't do that. This is what they do instead. But mostly it was solo. And then we got comfortable with essentially doing the same thing that we were doing in RP and in those fan fiction stories, where we were all in the document at the same time. We knew where the thing was going. And at the beginning, I was the one that did most of the external description. But as people have gotten comfortable with it, it's kind of magical, because we can pick up, if we see somebody hesitate for a moment, and that moment lasts a little too long, we can pick up right there and take off with the story and complete where they were kind of hesitating. And of course, we decide who's probably going to do most of the dialogue from a particular character, and then we have shared characters. So it's whoever feels comfortable with doing the dialogue at that point, and the internal thoughts.
Do they, so do you, I mean, that's really interesting to have the different, each of you doing, like saying, okay, this is my basic character. I can totally see that. But when you have the shared characters, isn't it, I mean, or sometimes both of you writing at the same time, and then it's like confusing?
That's never happened. What has happened is one of us will write something down, and then somebody else will come up and erase it and put in what they think should be there. But this operates on a level of trust. We trust each other a lot, and we trust each other not to do anything egregiously, or because we're pissed off at something or someone that day. And we trust each other to basically play by the rules, play nice. Everybody share the toys in the sandbox, and it works.
Now,
So there are 4 of you.
Does
There are
somebody have?
4 of you. What?
And
Is that you?
it's Dennis Lee, Veronica Gougier, Cody Martin, and me. We started out with 5. We had Steve Libby in there with us, and he's on the first book. And he ended up having life difficulties. So we bought him out. We bought out the rights to his characters. And we divvied up his characters among us.
And how long have you been working with this particular group?
Oh,
About.
God, it's a long time now. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Okay, I just wonder, I mean, you have a level of trust, you're saying. I just wondered if it was, 10 years, 20 years.
It's not 20 years.
15. Like here, 16. 17.
It's at least 12.
Wow. And all of
At
you?
least
I mean,
12.
you started, 5 of you all at 12 years ago, and then just
Mhm.
kept going except for the difficulty.
It's probably more than 12. And this started out as, before we got a contract for it, this started out as a podcast. So we did the episodes about 20 minutes long, because that we figured that was about the length of an average commute.
Oh,
We figured people would listen to it as they commuted.
So who narrated it?
Veronica, she's a very good voicer.
Okay, so just Veronica voiced all the characters then.
Yeah, Veronica does all the voicing, and we continued it as a podcast right up till the end. We're not going to do that with any subsequent books.
But it
Unless-
started podcast.
Unless it's a paid podcast, because Veronica's doing voicing for a living now, and we're not going to ask her to do anything for free.
can we link to the podcasts that have already
Yeah,
been
can we
done
have a
below?
link
Can we
below?
link to them?
Oh, hello, little dove.
Oh, yes. Sorry, there's a.
So Mercedes, can we link to them below? Do you have them? Are they still available? Then we'll look at the beautiful.
They're
dove.
still available. I have to find the first one.
Okay, well, we can do that later. You can send it to
But
Maria.
there'll be a link below for
And
the
we'll put a link
podcast. 'Cause
below of
I
it,
didn't
yeah.
know I could just listen to these as podcasts. That's so cool. Sorry, my dove is now on the computer. This is the one, by the way, I should mention, for those of you who don't know, Mercedes is the most amazing bird. I mean, she's got just, I'm always asking her different things and bugging her about birds. And she gets back to me and says, well, this, and this, and do this, or don't do this, or just stop. So it's been very good. This is a bird that has half its tail. And at the moment at least it stopped eating baby food. But it's got some definite issues. Very cute though. Okay, this is our bird section.
It wouldn't be long lost friends without a bird section.
It wouldn't be long lost friends without some bird interruption. So you have a podcast. But she voiced all the characters, right?
Yep, she did. The first few episodes were voiced by somebody else, but she took over after that. And I found it.
Now, do
Okay.
you ever write when it's not in your world? Isn't it usually your world?
I have done shared world stuff in the past. Haven't done any aside from worlds that were mine, but I did a brain ship book with Anne McCaffrey. I did Magic and Ithcar with Andre Norton. I did a Horse Clans book for Robert Adams. I did I did a lot when they had a lot of shared world anthologies. I was in a lot of them very early. Oh, she's so cute.
Oh,
Isn't she?
She's a little ring neck. What a cutie. Mourning dove.
Yeah, she is. And she was the one for really a month or so. I couldn't get her to eat anything. And I gave her some, I got some of that probiotic from the company that you mentioned for the hummingbird food. And like that day, she started eating on her own. I mean, I have no proof it was that, but it was kind of magical. So she left her a few days and then she came back with half a tail and she's been here ever since.
She encountered a cat.
Encountered a cat that wasn't my cat, because we have a very good cat that doesn't go after the birds.
Yeah, she encountered a cat. She's discovered now that cats are, hello. Hello, bird ass.
Exactly. Oh, look. Come here. That was what was over my blender smoothie the other day that I got rid of.
Ah, yes.
I don't know. Yeah. Oh, good. You're being very good, bird.
She's upstaging as all good animals will.
That's why I don't have my parrots out.
Yeah.
Because they
And we
would
should
go,
tell listeners that all those noises you hear, like that's
my
actually
parrots.
yeah. And we've got quite a few of them. That's so cool.
Well, the two noisiest ones are Kachara and Marty.
How old are they, parrots?
Marty is, they're all in their 20s. I know that for a fact. Marty doesn't have a band, so I don't know exactly how old he is. Kachara, I'm trying to remember if she has a band or not. A lot of them don't have bands.
Have you ever written nonfiction, like about your animals?
No,
Or-
only on Quora. There's really, it's a thing of getting out of your lane. If you get out of your lane, you lose sales. So that's why I stay in my lane.
Now, would you say your lane is fantasy, or
Pretty
science
much,
fiction?
yeah.
Both.
My lane is pretty much fantasy, yeah.
And novels more than short stories, would you say?
Yeah, novels more than short stories. There's not a whole lot of markets for short stories anymore. It's probably why you guys started that magazine.
It's one of the reasons for MetaStellar, yeah, is that there's just, everything's condensing.
Yeah.
So anyway, we've been getting together at least once a night since 2010, earlier than 2010.
You get
Sometimes
together once a night?
I mean, once a week. Sometimes more often than once a week.
I was like, once a night.
It's fun. It's the closest thing that a writer gets to being social. So there you go.
That sounds great.
No, that sounds really, really wonderful. My dad had a writers group and when I was a little kid, and it was just so wonderful hearing them all together. And I think I grew up thinking writing was a social thing, which of course it's not usually.
That's funny.
So you seem to have found a way to make it social too, which is.
Oh yeah. I understand that the two guys that are James Corey that do The Expanse, I understand they work pretty much the same.
So on Google Docs.
Well, I don't know if they use Google Docs, but I believe they get in the same document at the same time.
So
There are more things you can do that now than Google Docs. I just don't want to pay for them.
Yeah. I don't know all the other ones. I know there are a lot, but that's really cool to take a different character, each of you taking a different character, because then you really could have like conversations and
You
write
do
whole.
have you have actual conversations that way, yeah.
Wow.
And are you also writing then the interior of that character, but then who, does somebody assign to write the, you know, that's not in a character's interior, but that's the outside stuff
The world.
going on, not
I
dialogue.
tend to
The
do
world.
that a lot. I tend to do that a lot because largely because I've got more experience in it than they, or at least I had. I really can't say that now. They've been doing it for 12 years. They're perfectly good on their own. It's whoever happens to think, okay, that needs some beefing up, and they'll go in there and they'll beef it up.
And now you
Do
have
you-
also been really helpful to young writers with there was that one, I mentioned it, I forget, it was with Phoenix. What it's
Yeah,
called.
that's Cody Martin. That's the guy, he's part of the Secret World peeps, and he and I did 2 books. We're working on the 3rd for Bane. And we did the reboots Undead Can Dance together for Phoenix.
That's
Do
great.
you, when you're working on your project, do you do it in like a chapter and then set it aside and go to the next one for your first draft? Do you? Or is it just all over?
That's pretty much what we do. And the thing is that if you do a whole group like this, you've got to all agree that somebody's the authority and somebody can say no.
Mhm.
And in that case, in our case, that's been me. But the people the rest of the people in the group have to trust that the person that's the authority and does the final pass on everything is not going to be arbitrary, and they're not going to screw them over. So it's very much of a good friends trust system.
Sounds like it.
And how did you meet these people to start working together?
In City of Heroes, in the game. We started out RPing together, and then we started writing fiction together, fan fiction, COH fan fiction together. And I thought, I think we can make a book out of this.
Wow.
And that was the first one.
And that was the first one. And we managed to sell the series to Bane, and it's out there, Secret World Chronicles.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to listen to the podcast of it too, because
Yeah.
I love podcasts. I'm a podcast. I used to be a bookworm, and then when Books on Tape came around, I became a tapeworm. But now I'm whatever worm. I mean, I love to listen. Though the only problem is that the reader makes such a difference. Like you can have a great book and just be like, oh, this reader isn't good, and it ruins a book. So that's important.
Definitely. Definitely.
Well, I happen to think Veronica is awesome, but I'm prejudiced.
I will look forward to listening to that. Yeah.
Yeah, we really look forward. Really look forward to listening to that. While I'm moving around with, I keep thinking the birds there. It's not.
Oh,
I
Don't
keep
sit on
going
them.
back on my shoulder.
yeah.
So
Well, this has been so interesting, so helpful, I think, for people thinking about doing that, because
yeah, and what advice
Things can go south in a hurry.
oh, sure.
I'm really lucky with my group, because things can go south in a big fat hurry.
have you
And
had collaboration?
then you're in. So the first thing you should really do if you get into this is you should make a contract with each other. You decide, you designate right then and there, you designate who's the lead editor, how money's going to get divided up if there's ever any money, who's responsible for what, and what you're going to do if it doesn't work out.
Makes sense.
That way it's all in black and white, and nobody can pitch a fit. and basically waste however much time you spent on it by stomping off and leaving you with a half-finished project.
Well, that's a really
So,
good suggestion.
Did you do that right away?
We did that the first thing. And that's what
Yeah.
made it not so difficult to ease Steve out, because we had the contract in place. And
That
we'd
was-
already gotten advance money on all 5 books. And I basically said to Steve, look, either you can assign over your characters to us in exchange for the other 4 books that you've gotten advance money on that you won't be working on, or you can pay back the advance money and we'll negotiate. And he decided that he didn't have any money to pay back the advance. So he agreed to be signed to assign his characters over to us. And we agreed that we weren't going to do anything egregious with them.
We weren't
That's
going to
good.
have.
That was
horrible things
that was
happen.
obvious. We weren't going to abruptly kill off his character for no reason. In fact, we killed off his character in the very last book with an absolutely magnificent ending. So
It's very cool.
That's great. Don't kill unless you're supposed to. One more rule, huh? And then do it really well.
yes.
Yeah.
So I've been so excited about reading all the things. I started reading Hunter. Is that one of your newer ones?
Yeah, that's it's been within the last couple of years. That was my try at YA. I mean, actual YA. A lot of my stuff's been called YA. That was the Arrows books, I think, have been called YA. I'm not sure I agree with that, but people
So
like
is it YA just because of the age of the heroine, though?
yeah, I
Because
suspect
the
so.
writing isn't really different.
I suspect it's the age of the heroine. You can look
Yeah, I
at it
think
2
that's
ways.
what
You
they
can
do.
look at it like Stephen Colbert says, is YA books are the books people actually read. Uh, and you can look at it with the age of the heroine.
Because I mean I didn't know it was YA actually, and I wouldn't have known it was YA.
Well, they didn't
Except
have YA back then. They didn't have YA back then. They barely divided fantasies from science fiction when it came to the bookstores. You got to remember, I've been doing this for what, 35 years now? First
Amazing.
published book in 1985. So it's been a while.
It's amazing.
I predate the internet.
That's
Well,
crazy.
yeah,
I do.
yeah.
I predate the internet.
internet.
I was very much an early internet adopter.
Oh, I bet. And with books and well, you have the biology, and that's fascinating to me. You have the biology science, because one thing that's always gotten me with science fiction as opposed to science fantasy is so much of it, usually it's like, quantum physics more, or rockets. Very few people use actual biology a lot, it seems to me.
Yeah, and I think if you really need to have a fundamental understanding of ecology and biology if you're going to do any kind of world building. And if you're going to have substantial interaction with critters in the book, as opposed to just they got on their horses and ride, you should have an understanding of ethology, at least insofar as a specific species you're going to talk about. Well, just as an example, raptors, much as I love them, they're as dumb as a box of rocks.
Are they?
Oh God, they're as thick as two short planks. There's more brains than a block of linoleum. They're basically, they're like sharks. They are really, really good at what they do. And what they do is mostly hardwired. And when you think about it, say a falcon, knowing how to get up into the sun and dive down on a duck at 120 miles per hour and connect with it, that's not something that can be taught. Not in the short length of time that a bird is being taught by its parents. They can watch their parents do it, but a lot of it is instinct, a lot of it is hardwired. And when you hardwire that much complicated behavior, that doesn't leave a lot of space for socialization and learning. So as far as interaction goes, because they are specialists like that, because so much is hardwired, you don't get anything to speak of emotionally rewarding out of a bird of prey. And in fact, we had a general falconer that was our car mechanic, and his wife was a master falconer, which means she could basically have anything she wanted. And she had a great horned owl, and she had a Harris hawk for a while, and she didn't do falcons. She did the hawks, but she was coming over to our place and looking at our parrots, and finally she said, "I think what I want is a parrot." And she was all set to get a scarlet macaw, and I said, "No, no, 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 no. I know you know birds. You know raptors unbelievably well. You know raptors on a doctoral dissertation level. You don't know parrots. You don't want a scarlet macaw. They have temper like an Irish redhead." But at the time we had a rescue bird named Caesar, who was another blue and gold, who was one of the smartest birds I've ever seen in my life. He had a huge vocabulary. Well, let me give you an example. We had to move the bag of peanuts because he would unlatch his cage, open the door, hang on the door upside down by one toe, flap his wings as hard as he could to make the door move to where the bag of peanuts was, and lower himself like an abseiler into the bag of peanuts, come back up, flap his wings to close the door, and relatch the cage.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So we couldn't figure out where the peanuts were going, and we thought maybe there were mice in the house. No, it was Caesar helping himself.
That's incredible. That sounds like
could
a,
also-
that's like an octopus.
Paul could also take Caesar, lower him head first into the bag of peanuts and say, "You can have," and he would give a number between 1 and 3. 3 was as much as Caesar could fit in his mouth at any one time. So, but a number between 1 and 3. He said, "You can have X." He'd lower Caesar in there, and he'd bring Caesar back up, and Caesar would have exactly that number of peanuts. Smart.
Wow.
But he
And
was
obedient.
driving our female blue and gold crazy, because she is the dumb blonde of the parrot world. She's sweet, she's adorable, she's playful, and she's dim. She's as dim as Caesar was smart. And he was, "Hi, honey. Hey, you want to get together?" And she's,
Oh.
Hi, honey. Come on over. We'll have some fun.
Oh.
So I finally said, look, Caesar is driving Harley crazy. And this is driving Caesar crazy because he knows what mating is and he wants to do it. So let's just make them both happy and separate them. And you take Caesar. And they took Caesar, and Caesar is spoiled rotten. They come home from work. He comes out of the cage and he doesn't go back in until everybody goes to bed. They said he now has a vocabulary of 150 words. Yeah, and he is a very happy bird, and she is a very happy bird owner, and she gave away all of her falconry stuff. She said, I wanted a parrot all along.
Wow.
I wanted the interaction with a bird. Now I've got the interaction with a bird.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know I had a little cocktail for a while, and I loved it so much. It was so,
They're marvelous. They're absolutely marvelous. But you got to know what you're doing when you get into them, because they are social birds. All of the parrots are social. They have to have that social interaction. And they have to have the attention, and they have to have things that keep them occupied. Otherwise, they start doing things like, well, all right, let me look something up here. There, I'll drop that into the chat, and you guys can be aware this is a very, very distressing picture
Oh,
of self-mutilation. And they get into that the same reason that we think. It's the same reason why humans cut and self-mutilate themselves. They're distressed. They start out by over grooming their feathers like people bite their nails. And then they pull a feather and they get an endorphin hit, because that's how we're wired. When you get pain, you immediately release endorphins. So they get pain, release endorphins, feel better, we'll do it again. And eventually they'll get into what happened with that little bird there.
So there's a cockatiel that I know. I mean, it's at the Avian sanctuary I work at, and it was subjected to nicotine, and it lost all its feathers due to nicotine.
Yeah, that'll happen too. That's where people are really heavily smoking, though.
They were heavily smoking with this poor bird, and then it got addicted to nicotine, and when it was taken out, it just tore all its feathers out. And now, yeah, I'm not sure if they'll come back.
It depends upon how badly damaged the feather follicles are. There's a protocol for this. It's a reuse with a lot more nuance of an old treatment they used to use for this, of haldol, the it's not anti-schizophrenic, but it's a psychogenic drug, and
I think it's an antipsychotic, isn't it?
Antipsychotic, that's it. It's an antipsychotic. And they tried it and it kind of worked, but it left the bird a zombie.
Mm.
But Dr. Jeff Jenkins in San Diego worked out a much more nuanced approach where he dilutes it a lot. And you start out the bird on a high dose for its weight, and you gradually lower the dose until your bird is acting normally, but does not need to self-mutilate anymore. Does not need to pull those feathers anymore. And it works really well, especially on cockatoos.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna-
the Chloe Sanctuary in, I think it's near San Diego.
Chloe?
I'm getting it for you.
Oh,
There we go.
I'm gonna try it because this is poor little bird. It's just breaking my heart, actually. Thank
So-
you.
Okay. So there's the
Well,
Chloe Sanctuary. They've got,
very
they've got, they specialize in cockatoos. They specialize in cockatoos that were surrendered because they were feather pickers and self-mutilators.
Wow.
And they worked this out with Jeff Jenkins. And my avian vet is good friends with Jeff. Didn't know about this because he hadn't specifically talked with him about self-mutilating in cockatoos in a long time. They're both co-founders of the Avian Veterinary Association. And when I told him about this, he got very excited, and I was having a problem with two of my birds, the blue and gold and one of my cockatoos, because the cockatoo was raised originally in Hawaii, where there's a lot of earthquakes. And the blue and gold went through the Northridge, LA quake in a pet store in the Thousand Oaks Valley.
Ooh,
So imagine a poor, just weaned blue and gold in a pet store with this earthquake going on in the dark and stuff falling and birds screaming. And when we started getting fracking earthquakes here in Oklahoma, they both started going after themselves. And I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on because none of the other birds were picking. All the other birds were fine, and I have grays, and they are also notorious for being pickers if they get into a situation that makes them uncomfortable. And I could not figure out what was going on until I figured out it was the fracking earthquakes. So
no.
I was trying just about everything and finally ran across this at the Chloe Sanctuary site, told my vet about it. We put him on it and it was like magic, like absolute magic.
Wow.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And so I'm kind of evangelical about this. If anybody's got a picker or a self-mutilator,
Yeah, say send it, because
They
I was
could.
told his head feathers wouldn't grow back. I'm interested. This is really good stuff.
if the problem is that she got addicted to nicotine and she's still got that addiction, I'd have your vet talk to Jeff Jenkins, and all the information is on the Chloe Sanctuary site. I'd have your vet talk to Jeff Jenkins and work out a low dose for a microscopic dose. Almost for a cockatiel, it's going to be borderline
Homeopathic.
homeopathic dose. Yeah. But yeah, you work out a dose for the cockatiel and we'll see if her feathers will grow back.
Okay,
Cool.
that sounds great.
Gosh,
And if anybody
I
knows
don't-
of anybody with a self-mutilating bird, for God's sake, try this.
that's pretty
Because
cool.
actually the funny thing is Harley got a little smarter when she was on this. I think because she wasn't so anxious anymore, she suddenly was able to do problem solving she couldn't do before. which resulted in my having to put her water bottle behind an armored plate because she thought that unscrewing the water bottle and letting it fall to the floor and crash and make a big noise and a splash was the best thing ever. And those damn water bottles are $25 a piece.
Not only writing help, but bird help. Great. Thank you. So much information. We got to have you come back again.
Yeah, no,
I would
it's
be happy
fabulous.
to.
Definitely.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to try this with this cockatiel now. And yes, I know our guests are probably like, shouldn't you ask her more about writing? I'm like, no, I want to know about all your bird stuff.
It's your show. You can do what you want because it's your show.
That's right.
It's
My
like
show, our show, do what I want.
it's like the Trixie and Trixie Mattel and Katya show. They can talk about what they want to because it's their show, not yours.
That's the point. Well, we'll bring you back and do it again for sure.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you so much. So
So much.
we always end with the best thing we learned this week. So this is going to be a small one. Short people, I'm short. You guys may not know that, but Andrea does know that.
I do.
In fact, last time we tried to do a show together and we're going to do
She was
another
like
one.
this tiny next to me.
I was
We had to put her on a
it
book.
looked like Andrea and me. It was so embarrassing, but short people live longer. Okay,
Well,
that's my-
Small animals.
That's true of dogs too.
Yeah, small animals do too.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. That's
Okay.
cool.
Small
You're gonna
animals.
pipe in on mine because Elizabeth, because it's something you'll know about that I just read about, that sea sponges, basically, they say they call it a sneeze because they get rid of the particles of things that they filter through that aren't any good through mucus, that they put the stuff back out into the water and then other animals eat it.
Yeah.
At least brittle stars and small crustaceans. I mean, one person's mucus is another person's.
Meal.
Coco Vin.
Huh?
One person's mucus is another Coco Vin.
Yeah.
Is another's coco. Or
That's pretty
tiramisu. You may,
Huh?
it may be
Or
sushi to
sushi.
you, but it's sushi to me, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay, I have to add something since you mentioned sponges. I'm sorry, this is really quick, but did you know, because this blows me away, you can put sponges, 2 different kinds of sponges in a blender together, blend them up, and then they will separate back into the 2 sponges they were.
That's
Providing
crazy.
you're
And
still alive.
they're still alive?
They're still alive. No, then they're still
Providing
alive.
they're still alive.
Wow.
Yes.
If they're dead, no, that doesn't work. So don't take your bath sponges,
Yeah,
put them
really.
in the blender. It's not gonna work.
It's not, you're just gonna end up with an ugly mess and you'll be so unhappy. And don't try and wash yourself with it either because that's like the
Yeah,
mucus.
no.
So Mercedes, do you have anything good this week?
Oh, good this
Or
week.
fun or weird or?
Oh, okay, good this week. I'm not gonna win it, but I got a nomination for the Dragon Award.
Congratulations.
you're not gonna
I'm
win
not gonna win it. I'm up against Vonda McIntyre. It's not John Scalzi. But I'm up against Vonda McIntyre, somebody else who's big, and one of the 1632 verse novels. And one of those 3 is gonna get it because they're big favorites with the Dragon Con crew. So, but it's nice
Well,
to get
it's
the nomination.
exciting.
Well,
it's exciting.
congratulations for getting nominated. And also thank you always for being such a supporter of other writers, you know, that haven't gotten all the recognition you have, and you always do your best to, and it doesn't always come back nicely to you, and it should. And so thank
Oh,
you. for
Charlie
that.
Strauss. I'm up against Charlie
Yes.
Strauss. Not
Oh.
gonna happen.
Well,
So thank you so much. And we also, of course, need to always thank our fabulous Maria Korloff, who
Yes.
produces all this.
Thanks, Marie.
And she's wonderful. and Alex Korloff, her brother, for editing. Thank you,
Editing.
Alex.
And Long Lost Friends is brought to you by MetaStellar magazine. It's an online magazine, and we publish original science fiction, horror, and fantasy. And there's a link below if you want to learn more about us. And please, if you liked the video and our chat here today with Mercedes, let us know, comment, like it, and be sure to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any future episodes. And if you'd like to help MetaStellar and help us to put out more original fiction, you can visit our Patreon page, and all the money that we get goes to paying our writers for original fiction. So thank you so much for joining us today. And Mercedes, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to go to the zoo and try and talk to tigers.
We're going to talk to tigers, and we're going to let you know how it goes.
So shall I give you the WWF sign off for this?
Yes.
Please.
All right, now you know what you gotta do. You gotta go and you gotta buy that MetaStellar book, because you gotta celebrate and support independent writers. Yeah!
Yeah.
Thank
yeah.
Thank you.
I love it. Thank you.
I can't top that. So bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you.